They are pulling off the improbable sometimes because they have those two guys, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Next-gen stats here, powered by AWS. Look what they have done compared to the rest of the league when Tua's throwing the ball downfield. That is 10 yards or more downfield. They're pretty good. And we're going to see that speed on display tomorrow night in Cincinnati. This guy had some speed as well. J McDuffie, 5th all-time in Dolphins franchise history with 5,074 receiving yards. He led the league in receptions in '98 with 90. A career high for him in his Dolphins career. Now is a podcast and a good one. Fish Tank 81. J McDuffie ahead of TNF joins us live on NFL Now. OJ, how are you and your family doing down there with that storm bearing down?
We're doing well. We're doing well. You know, we're still praying for our neighbors to the west, making sure they're good over there and making sure we can bring anybody in that needs to come in. But so far, so good. A lot of rain. I'm sure that, you know, the West Coast isn't used to seeing a lot of these storms that we've seen over on the East Coast. So I just hope they're heeding the warnings and, getting to shelter or even evacuating if they have to.
Absolutely. Here's hoping everyone is okay. And if you haven't moved yet, obviously find some shelter with that storm bearing down on the West Coast. We've talked so much about the Bucs this week, OJ, how they are in the Dolphins building right now, getting ready for the game. There are no excuses here, but I can't imagine the headspace the Dolphins are in. That emotional game Sunday. In the heat, we saw everyone exhausted. Tua's got the bad back. They had to leave Wednesday. This is a tough task for them at 3-0, I know, but to go on the road to Cincinnati to face Joe Burrow.
Yeah, it's a huge test. You know, it really is a huge test. Not only for, the team itself, but for our new head man who's probably hadn't had to deal with a situation like this. For one, the storms down here, leaving a little earlier today than they would have normally left. And then, of course, being a Thursday night on a short week. So it's all an adjustment for everybody. He's got a hell of a staff, which helps a lot. To help him with these different decisions. And he's got a pretty much veteran team that knows how to handle their business. So tough little trip up to Cincinnati, playing against a really, really good football team. Still riding that high, I'm sure, but I'm sure they've turned the page and are getting ready to go.
All right, I want to talk about the guy over your shoulder, OJ, the artist rendering of the great Dan Marino, Hall of Famer, who obviously is still part of the franchise, a guy that you played with. When we've seen some of the numbers, especially week 2, when Tua threw 6 touchdowns in that comeback win in Baltimore, we have not seen these numbers since Dan Marino. What do you say to that?
Hey, you know what, man? Danny he's a unicorn. He really is. You look what he did in the mid-'80s, throwing for 5,000 yards in the season and 48 touchdowns. That wasn't touched for a long, long time until the game changed. So, I think the game has changed to right now to where these guys can go out there and put up gaudy numbers. Can you do it consistently is always the question. But I love the fact that Tua has found that confidence and that courage to take these shots, get the ball on time, find his great receivers in Waddle and Hill, and make big things happen. Game plan is all that matters for a lot of these guys. And I think Tua does a great job with our game plan and executes it really well right now.
You know what stands out to me, OJ? We talk about the speed. Obviously, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle have the speed, and they're on 3rd and 22. You see Waddle get deep. I mean, that was a game-changing play. But we heard so much of the offseason, with good reason, about how the run game is going to gash teams this year. Are you surprised we haven't necessarily seen that yet?
I am surprised a little bit, but the reason I'm not so surprised is because, we've had guys in and out of that lineup. Every single game, we have guys in and out of the different positions, left and right tackles, some guard positions. And so the run game always seems to fall behind the rest of the game. But I think the fact that Coach McDaniel sticks to it is the most important thing. We've got some home run hitters, from Mostert and Edmonds. We've got some guys that can hit home runs right away when they get the rock in their hand. So we're not going to shy away from it. We just got to keep working on it. And until then, we'll keep passing the ball around the yard and let our wide receivers do a lot of the work.
All right, he's hitting the deep shots. We know he's great on the slants and the bubbles and all those things that we've seen the last couple of years from Tua under the other staff. OJ, what is the one thing that you would like to see from Tua, assuming he's healthy, back and ankle and all that, in a perfect world?
Well, you know what? I think he's doing what I want him to do. I want him to go with whatever the game plan is, and I think the game plan has been just that. You know, look at the last two games. We got down a lot, and he was able to go out there and throw the ball around the yard and make big numbers, the 6 touchdowns, 400 yards passing. And I think that was part of what we had to do with that at that point. Last game, they weren't giving us anything deep. They knew they want to keep everything in front of us, beat up secondary, and so he took whatever they gave us. I think the best thing about Tua right now is he's taking the game plan and doing whatever needs to be done to be successful, and not worried about gaudy numbers, but making sure that we're successful as an offense.
As the Dolphins try to go to 4-0 for the first time since your 1995 team, coached by Don Shula, the Hall of Fame. Work Don Shula into the show here. Dolphins, Bengals coming up tomorrow. J McDuffie's podcast, Fish Tank 81. OJ, stay safe. Always good to see you.
Thank you.
Hurricane Ian, so much so that Dolphins took off early today for Cincinnati rather than to linger. Wanted to get there safely, and obviously our best wishes to everyone in Florida. Please stay safe. Ian Rappaport, thank you. NFL Network Insider, that game is scheduled for Sunday. Scheduled meantime for earlier that day at 1 o'clock Eastern time. How about this one? We got Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, 1 p.m. Sean McDermott in Baltimore.
I mean, you look at what Josh has been able to do, and then you look at Lamar's game, and they're a little bit different in terms of their strengths maybe, and but just it's good for the league. I mean, these are two young quarterbacks that play at such a high level. They give you headaches. They're hard to stop because of they're multidimensional and what they do and how they can do it. And so a lot of respect, I'm sure, around the league for Josh, and of course we love Josh, and a lot of respect for Lamar in this case too.
Have to have a lot of respect for both of these quarterbacks, the way both of them have played this year. James Palmer, Bucky Brooks. I used to get laughed at sometimes when I said that Josh Allen was the most elusive quarterback and made as many plays on the run, not named Lamar Jackson. But you see it with both of them. These guys have kind of sort of changed the way we evaluate quarterbacks and how the quarterback position's played.
Absolutely, Andrew. When you think about this evaluation, like both of these guys were lightly regarded in terms of the draft. They were guys that we poked holes in their games when we watched them in college. Not accurate enough. Can they play from the pocket? Can they play traditional quarterback? Well, both of these guys have become superstars. And what it has done, their success has opened the path for other, I would say, non-traditional quarterbacks to have success. Guys that have athleticism and running skills. It allowed offensive coordinators to have enough imagination to maybe bring in some of those collegiate concepts to help these quarterbacks have success at the pros. When you look at the way the Buffalo Bills run their offense and the way the Baltimore Ravens run their offense, neither one is a traditional offense, but man, it puts defensive coordinators in bonds because now you're dealing with a dual threat playmaker who can hurt you not only with their legs, but now with their arms.
And Bucky, you talk about not traditional offenses. You look at what the Ravens went and did this offseason. It was very similar to the look that they had in 2019 when Lamar Jackson won the MVP unanimously. It's let's bulk up our offensive line. Let's get deeper at the running back spot. Let's get a couple more tight ends because he loves to work the middle of the field. And let's try to have the same success. The interesting part is the offensive line hasn't really played up to par. He's been the entire running game. Now, J.K. Dobbins did return last week, and you expect that role to increase and him to carry some more of the workload in running the football. And Mark Andrews has really been the only tight end to flourish for this team. It's interesting. You could think that he's actually playing Andrew better than he did in that 2019 MVP season thus far through these first 3 weeks. He's specifically been so good on first and second down. That set up a lot of what he's been able to do running this offense. And now you have Devin Duvernay. You have a guy that you're seeing maybe a big play weapon. You have Rashad Bateman. You have these options. I'm talking about him playing great right now. It looks like it's trending in the right direction to maybe have even more success with Dobbins coming back and these other guys getting better each week.
Yeah, I think he is playing better than his MVP season statistically and just passing the eye test, and these two quarterbacks combining for over 700 yards of total offense between them through these 3 games here. On the Bills side of things, this is a tough one, James, a rebound game after that exhausting effort in a loss in Miami. What's their thought going into this one?
Well, it is a difficult situation going against the player I just described in Lamar Jackson specifically with the defense that you have, and you played your last game really without your entire starting secondary. But But I go back to the preseason game that I covered there against the Denver Broncos when I was talking to people on the Broncos organization going, man, this team is just unbelievably deep. That's what we saw in that game, second and third stringers, and that's what we saw against the Dolphins. I mean, this is the team that everybody is talking about in Miami, Bucky, but at the same time, this defense that I mentioned without their secondary and the explosive receivers in Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill held them to about, 200 and some odd yards and 15 first downs. Offensively, the offensive line was in shambles, and then Josh Allen throws for 400 yards. I would say this team is still in a very good spot because they could have very well won that game without some miscues. You're going to be shorthanded, it looks like, against the Ravens. But at the same time, you have to be happy with your 53-man roster if you're Sean McDermott.
Oh, they're built the right way. They're built the way every NFL executive wants to have his team built. They're homegrown guys that have been developed. They are not afraid when they have their opportunities. And it's the perfect blend of coaching, matching the personnel. Meaning, when I look at them, I can't say that they are necessarily the most talented defense, but man, what they ask their players to do, it fits with the strengths of their game, which is why they're successful. When I look at Baltimore, I see a bit of a defense in transition. This is a team that has always played great defense over the last 20 years. Now they're still trying to put it together. You had a new defensive play caller, Mike McDonald, coming from the college game back to the Baltimore Ravens, trying to do a little more zone eyes, see what's going on. And so it's a bit of a struggle. But the one thing that we know about the Baltimore Ravens, they're going to test the toughness of the Buffalo Bills because they're going to try and hit them in the mouth. We will get a chance to see if the Buffalo Bills, who have played very finesse on offense, if they're physical enough to be one of the last teams standing in the end, the Baltimore Ravens will give them that test.
And the Ravens defense getting some new faces on the field. Jason Pierre-Paul seen today on the practice field for the first time at Owings Mills, just signed, wearing number 4, which looks weird. Bucky Brooks, 4. Yeah, defensive end. Thank you, J